Hello, party people. So, I am not trans. I have no intention of becoming trans, but I'm familiar with the community. If you want to call it that, familiar. I mean, I think this is something to consider. I am a fan of Brett Cooper. Normally she does the comment section. This is like off the clock special or something, and the title is "The Trans Movement is Hurting Young Women." So take that how you will. I'm just responding to this. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's false or a lie. I just think it's something worth noting. Let me put it that way. Alright, here we go.
Welcome back to another segment of Off the Clock. I am going to react to another full-length video today, but that was not the intention when I started putting
She is so beautiful, by the way. You guys don't understand.
together this video. I had noticed this influx of videos from detransitioners, whether it be, they fully regret their experience or they're wanting to shed light on the parts of medically transitioning that they feel like are not told to people, talking about how they were influenced as children. And I saw all of these videos drop within the span of like 2 months. It seemed like every day there was a new one, and then I kind of went through and I searched, and it was like 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, within the last month. And I just found that interesting because I did that whole episode about detransitioners over the holiday break, and I pulled most of those videos from social media. So those were shorter TikToks, clips from Twitter, and I wanted to...
She's wearing Dr. Dre Beats headphones. How old is this video? It's from 1 year ago, so like it's still relevant. I think it's still relevant.
Give a platform to some of these stories as well, and so we were going through these different videos, but this one stood out to my team and I just because of how articulate this young woman is. And so we're just going to watch the whole thing because, again, historically, these people's stories and what they have to say are suppressed. Doctors refuse to acknowledge it. There is not a lot of data about detransitioning because a lot of that is done outside of the medical world. You just stop taking your hormones, you socially detransition. There is not data on it. People brush them aside as if they don't matter because it's not socially advantageous to the narrative. And so I want to make sure we have space for stories like these.
Hello. This is a weird video for me to make, but it's something that I've spoken about on this channel before. And that is the fact that I used to believe, or I used to be trans, and since then I have detransitioned. I was very young when I started feeling issues with my body and my self-esteem. I was maybe 8 or 9 when I hit puberty, and it was around this time that sort of my anxiety started, that I started feeling discomfort within myself. And when I got into high school, I fell in with sort of an LGBT friend group. In this friend group, everyone sort of aligned their identities so fully with their sexuality or their gender that I began to believe that this was like normal, that it was normal to have your sort of only personality trait being your gender or your sexuality.
This is a perfect example of what we mean when we say that this is social contagion. It's very, very normal to be uncomfortable in your body as a young person. Going through puberty, starting middle school, high school, it's a weird time. Nobody has fun. Things are changing. Hormones are raging. It's very, very normal. And because, like she is saying, sexuality and who you're attracted to has become like this defining characteristic of your personality and kind of defines who you hang out with and your coolness, obviously people are going to gravitate.
That is so true, especially in today's day and age. It's getting out of hand. I'm not saying that's a bad thing necessarily. I'm just saying do your research
Towards that, especially because in the hierarchy of, I guess, a weird way, social classes, the LGBTQ community dominates right now. They say they're oppressed, but they dictate trends. They are shown in every kind of advertisement. They're the cool, trendy, edgy, going against the status quo kids, when literally, like, they are not really going against the status quo, they are dictating the status quo. So obviously, confused young people, if they are brought into that group, yeah, no shit, they might have some confusion.
I fully remember many of my friends saying, oh, my only personality trait is that I'm gay or whatever. And that was the way that I thought friendships and that I thought people were supposed to be, that we were in this sort of righteous bubble that sort of defied societal conventions. And when I sort of saw the idols that my friends looked up to, people like Elliot Page or Hunter Schafer, I would see posts from trans people that say essentially, you know, I struggled with my body a lot when I was younger, and then I finally realized that I was trans and I decided to fully transition, i.e. like double mastectomy or bottom surgery. And then I finally felt happy. And when you're young, you don't really tend to sort of assess the information that you take in. You sort of see, well, at least for me, when I saw that information, I thought to myself, okay, well, not instantly, but over time you come to think, okay, well, that is the solution to issues with your body and issues with your femininity.
For generations, it has commonly been understood the young people do not make the best decisions. There's a reason why there is a voting age. There's a reason why you cannot join the military until a certain time. You can't buy cigarettes, buy alcohol, get a tattoo. You can't consent to medical treatment. However, the narrative is completely flipped when it comes to this ideology. And when talking about young people who believe that they're trans, it's like, oh, well, obviously they know what is best for them. They feel it. This is we must support the children. But no, they are confused. They are following a trend. They are following a crowd. But there are so many other young people out there who just have no idea what is going on. And like she said, do not have the ability to think critically about, I wonder if the information that I am perceiving and understanding is good for me, and I wonder if I am taking this as reality when really it's just my stupid idiot friends also being ridiculous and insecure and confused. Maybe that should not be like the word of God in a way.
I decided very, very early in my life, I think as soon as I was 12 or 13, that the second I turned 16 or 18 or I had raised enough money, I would essentially run away from home and get a double mastectomy. My parents weren't even necessarily against trans people, but the whole sort of...
I don't know what that is. What is a double... are you saying mastectomy, MA? Or are you saying like vasectomy? Because it wouldn't make sense why they're saying vasectomy, right?
Culture of LGBT teens is that you are in some ways misunderstood by your parents. I know now that my parents love me no matter what, but still I would find reasons to sort of resent them and to find sort of excuses to isolate myself further and further from them, probably because this is what my friends were also doing and what a lot of the people I admired went through too, like issues with their parents, which is really sad looking back on it.
It's literally just 2023's version of peer pressure. And going through trends, being goth, being emo, terrible low-rise jeans, whatever it is. Except this actually has irreversible damage on your body.
Yeah.
If you take it too far. But everything she is saying, peer pressure, learning from your friends, social contagion.
I'm very, very skeptical of a movement that directly or indirectly, this is a very charged sort of... it's charged vocabulary. I don't intend it to be sort of criminalizing them, but I'm very skeptical of a movement that sort of isolates children from their parents and makes them
It's a brave statement.
Question their parenting and almost encourages them to step away and to sort of have a found family.
I'll be even more brazen than she is because I really don't care about people finding this and canceling me and being upset at me because they already are if they don't like me. They are not unintentionally trying to separate children from their parents. They are, with everything that they do. I mean, think about schools. You send your kid to a school for 6 to 8 hours a day. That is really, really imperative, important time you are losing with your kid, and that teacher is taking over for you, basically. Is teaching your kids about, social constructs, about gender ideology. They're the ones teaching sex ed. They're introducing them to all of these really, really charged subjects that you should be able to educate your children about at home. And then we see in everything from Disney TV shows to like mainstream Hollywood entertainment, children hating their parents and being distant from their parents. That was one of the reasons why my mom never let me watch Disney Channel, because she would always say, you are never more rude to me and disrespectful and angry than after you've gone to a friend's house or been at a hotel and have watched Disney Channel. Because all of the characters on those shows, they were so disrespectful to all of their parents. And the parents are out of the picture, or they depict them as being idiots. Like, think back about all of those Disney and Nick shows. The parents are bumbling morons and don't pay attention to what their kids are doing. Things like that make an impact subconsciously. And then we think about Hollywood and we see these TV shows like Euphoria. The parents are obviously not involved, a hands-off situation. Then we see what goes on in government, where, if you do not allow your child to transition, if you say, no, I don't want you to go on hormones, your rights can be stripped. That's not just something that's happening in Canada, it's happening here in the US. Parents are terrified to lose custody, to push back against this, because not only will they get canceled, but they could lose their kids. So I will be totally brazen and stand totally confidently in the statement that yes, they are trying to take your children from you, emotionally, physically, legally, because that is how you gain control over an entire generation.
Damn.
If I do say so.
My job.
But she's making incredible points, but I was just going to drive it home because I don't really worry about people being pissed at me.
It was very, very easy to fall into the mindset of, no one understands me, I'm from a different generation, my issues are completely unique to me. But the truth is that when I spoke about it later on, sort of after, with a few of the women in my family, they too have struggled with feeling feminine in their younger years. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're trans. No one ever explained to me that puberty would be a difficult time emotionally. I knew, of course, that hormones were high and my body would change, but that was about it. No one ever told me that it's a strange feeling going from sort of childhood to adulthood. And the difficulty of that does not point necessarily to your gender identity, it just points to sort of your own discomfort and mental health.
I think that's an important point, because you have this entire, age group of people who are already struggling, uncomfortable, and like she said, you're provided a solution. And that solution tells you that, you're going to be totally happy and comfortable in your body, you're going to be the real you, you're going to be with a really cool group of people, you're going to be rebelling, you're going to be different than your parents. When, like she said, it's not a solution at all. It's just kind of like baiting kids into it. Well, if baiting is the right word, but the foundation that puberty lays is just a very vulnerable time.
I publicly identified as trans or non-binary for 4 years until I was, I think, 15 or 16, and after which I sort of made an Instagram post that said, I'm not trans anymore. And then I think I deleted Instagram, and I sort of isolated myself for a very long time, because whether or not it was real, I sort of perceived the whole wide world to be against me. So I had sort of built myself into this little victim mindset, because of course people didn't fully understand the fact that I was non-binary. I mean, a lot of people did not, because we were 12 and 13 and this was a new thing. But I took that very, very personally, and I took that to mean that they were against me, when they probably weren't. I assumed that the people who had been my friends when I was trans would stop being my friends after I stopped being trans, which was true. My LGBT friend group pretty much instantly disowned me. And I then, to some extent, because I was slowly coming to terms with the fact that I did not want to be friends with people who I considered to be superficial. The next couple of years after I sort of publicly detransitioned were very, very hard. It was really difficult to sort of re-establish myself, knowing that I had made such a huge mistake, and that was probably amplified by my own feelings of depression and social anxiety.
I have to say, I'm incredibly impressed with the self-awareness that she has. She's not only just talking about, you know, the culture that she was in school and this friend group, but she's acknowledging, okay, I felt like this, which allowed me to be vulnerable to that. I had this victim mentality. It's just incredibly impressive. That's hard to do, and it's even harder to publicly talk about. So it's just impressive. And also, it breaks my heart hearing part of that story where she felt like she had to delete Instagram, be totally, which is healthy, so it's nothing against that, but where she felt like she had to totally isolate herself because she had made this mistake and was, you know, going against this ideology that nobody wanted to hear her story. So many of these detransition stories, they're suppressed because they are immediately exiled from that community. Doctors don't want to hear. It doesn't fit an agenda. Obviously, you're going to feel alienated, which it should not be that case.
I don't think I ever fully reintegrated back into like high school society after that because I found it really embarrassing. It was a difficult thing to have gone through so young and to base your whole identity around, and it's such a big thing that when you realize that you're no longer that thing, the people around you just turn, essentially. Being so young, I was so impressionable. I read recently that it takes 14 times of being told something for a child to believe it, and so I suppose it could have just been that I was told so many times it's possible that you're trans, it's possible that you're trans, that eventually I started to believe it.
That is just, I had never heard that number before. That is crazy. Like,
It's crazy.
about the content that children consume, where they're subconsciously learning all of this, whether or not somebody's telling them you are gay, you are whatever, you are trans. They're learning all of this subconsciously if their teachers are saying, oh, anybody could be anything, and you know, you can change your gender at any time. If it's only 14 times that has to occur, yeah, like, no shit, this is a problem. Of course they're misguided. Of course they can't make an informed decision. They're 12 or 13 years old, maybe even younger.
Shalom everyone, my name is Arisorif. I'm the president of One for Israel. I'm sure
No one really talks about the rising amount of young women who at some point considered themselves trans, either medically transitioned or didn't, and then came to regret it. The only real time I've heard this discussed publicly or online was through a Joe Rogan podcast with Abigail Shriya, who's also written a fantastic book. But she basically says that to some extent, being transgender now is to depress teenage girls what, say, anorexia was in the 90s or drugs were in the 70s. It's sort of what girls who have home problems, who have issues with their body, who have issues with their family, it's what they turn to as a solution for their identity. Or not solution, but what they base their identity around.
So I've talked about this in other videos. I'm totally open about it. I've told the story about my mom in the car with me when I was probably 15 or 16. I don't even remember. I need to actually figure out what year this was. But where I was struggling so much and I totally rejected every part of my femininity. Puberty was awful. I hated it. I didn't feel like I fit in with girls, and so I dressed like a butch, and I acted like a guy, and I only had guy friends, and I would say, I don't have any feelings for guys. Like, I don't do that. I'm not silly. I'm whatever. And she had to literally stop the car and say, like, it is okay to be both. You do not have to reject the parts of your personality that make you a tomboy, that make you like running with the guys and like playing those sports. That does not make you have to reject the things that make you a woman, that make you female. And that was a really, really pivotal and important conversation, and I'm so grateful that she had the awareness of the situation to be able to bring that up in a very matter-of-fact way that I think a lot of parents would shied away from that kind of conversation. So I'm very grateful that my mother's not shy about anything. But it was a really, really important conversation to have. And then on the topic of anorexia and that sort of thing, like, I also have dealt with disordered eating. Like, I had as many things you could cram into a childhood. I basically had it. And so it was so important that these conversations were had with me, and that I was taught self-awareness at a very young age, that I was taught healthy coping mechanisms. And I know therapy can be controversial these days, but I'm so glad that I went to a therapist who did not tell me to change my gender and did not let me feed into any of that. That I never thought that I was trans, but just hearing stories like these, talking about young women who come from like broken families, who have dealt with so much stuff, that already felt like they didn't fit into their bodies and didn't feel like they fit as a woman, that might have happened. Because that was me. I fit perfectly into that model. And I'm somebody now that is like so, I stand so strong in my values that I speak against this. And it's just shocking to me that literally like less than 5 years ago could have been me. Food for thought, guys.
I can see it now, how incredibly high the levels of transgender people are rising, particularly amongst young teenage girls. I mean, it's unprecedented. It's a several thousand% increase in the last 20, 30 years. And you have to consider that some of that must be cultural and some of that must be societal. I don't think it happens organically that, you know, such a huge percentage of young girls just wake up one day and realize that they're trans.
Another point on this, a lot of people who kind of fight back against these statistics, they say, well, the numbers are exploding because this generation is just, you know, more progressive and it's accepting, so more people are coming out. Yet with this generation being more accepting, the subject matter is being discussed more openly. People are being taught about it at rates that we've never seen before. So by default, that is cultural. By default, that is influence, whether you like it or not. So you can't objectively say, oh no, this is all biological, this is all natural. No, you are basically finding the fault in your own argument because you're admitting that there is a greater awareness, greater conversation. We're all open about this. Then what is the result of those conversations, of it being portrayed in the media, of it being this like cultural phenomena and, you know, social contagion?
But the trouble with this is, I mean, despite the fact that I date women, not exclusively, I don't identify as being part of the LGBT community because to me, the LGBT community, or the one that I have experienced, clings so much to its beliefs and to its system and its agenda.
It makes me think of that video that I reacted to. There was a guy and he was like, you aren't queer if you never wore a mask. Like, queerness is political. The Q stands for like social justice, which was like, okay, that actually makes sense because I've never known what the Q actually stood for. But it is totally true what she is saying. They are part of an ideology. They have an agenda as a community. My friends who are gay or lesbian, they totally reject that. They also totally reject the fact that their sexuality is the end-all be-all of their personality. It's like the least interesting thing about them. My best friend Amir is gay, and he has a husband, and, you know, we go do things together. And yet I'm not sitting around thinking about his sexuality all day. He doesn't sit around talking about it all day. He's just Amir. He doesn't identify with any of that because he doesn't feed into the political bullshit. But anyway, I just thought that reminded me of that video. So it was like, oh my God, you're saying the quiet part so out loud that we have been saying and now you're admitting it. It's like a weird gotcha that didn't do anything because it's not like they're ashamed of their political agenda. They're so happy to own it, which is even weirder.
I don't think it's right to sort of attack anyone who doesn't agree.
I don't think it's necessarily weird. I think exactly what she was saying before was that it's you don't always know, especially when you're younger, like who you want to be versus who everyone else wants or expects you to be. This include family or friends, etc. And it's, I mean, obviously the movement has changed things and the timeline of things, but I just feel like this isn't a shot at anyone in particular. I'm just speaking in general. Bad parents are bad parents, no matter what happens to their kids.
With your specific dogma, and this is in no way an attack. If anything, it's me speaking about my own experience in, not officially, but rather leaving the LGBT community. And it's a difficult thing to talk about. I know that a lot of people will probably resent me for putting out this video, despite the fact that I've tried to stay as true to my own emotions and experiences as possible, but I do it with no malice in my heart. If anything, I do it out of empathy for other young girls who are like me, who see this as the new solution to their issues with themselves and their femininity.
What did you say?
Every day I am so grateful that like my parents didn't have enough money for me to medically transition at 12 or 13, or that I didn't run away from home and decide to have a double mastectomy.
There's a secret method to sell literally thousands of books on Amazon every month that doesn't involve being.
And you know, this is becoming a rarity these days. Like, I am shocked that she was able to go through this, like, you know, 4.5, 5 year journey and not get, you know, started on hormones. Not get, you know, put into the queue for a double mastectomy. Because people say, oh, you know, that doesn't happen until you turn 18, you can't do it. No, it does. And parents are so afraid that they just go with it. And then you see these stories where in less than 5 years, she realized, oh my God, no, this is not me actually being true to myself. She came to all of these realizations in less than 5 years. Imagine what would have happened if she had done irreversible damage to her body. So then think about all of these young people who have gone down this path. They feel the same shame and the emotions that she felt as she was detransitioning, having to announce it to the public, losing all of her friends, and now you have also done things to your body that you cannot change anymore. It's heartbreaking. And it's, yeah.
Damn.
Voices like hers, they're just so important.
If I had not had to wait so long on the NHS, I would have regretted it so much. I mean, in the past couple of years, my femininity has brought me so much, and I never would have been able to experience that had I not detransitioned and taken the time to really consider my own identity. And I know I'm not alone, because I personally have at least like 5 to 10 friends that have all done this, to some greater or lesser extent. And I think the statistics mirror this too. It's something like a majority of people who transition are equally as depressed as they were before than they are after. And I think the percentage of suicide goes up very, very highly 5 years and after medical transition for a large percentage of people. It was always posited as a life-saving surgery to have sort of top or bottom surgery, and it's
more of a new life.
It's such a huge decision to make without having been told the other side of it. Things like testosterone, they tell you that it's not permanent, but it is. If you take a look at some of the public sort of detransitioners who have been on testosterone, who have become infertile because of it, because that is an inevitable side effect of testosterone, who experience joint pains their whole life, chronic pain, fevers, anything like that. It's something that I wouldn't wish on anyone, to look back and realize that they made a mistake. It's such a huge and irreversible mistake to make. Before they make any permanent decisions, take a long look inwards. Heal your mental health, first of all.
That's so important.
That is the biggest thing, I think. Heal your mental health, and then consider if you still feel uncomfortable within your own sexuality or gender. After I healed my mental health, I feel almost no inclination towards like masculinity or androgyny. And I think that's the case for a lot of people who sort of experience depression in their earlier years, but then
100%.
change as they get older. It's a terrible mistake to make, and one I hope that is made a lot less often. Obviously, it's not a mistake for everyone. I'm not talking about everyone. I'm talking about the select few who are socially pushed.
Again, I'll be much more brazen than she is. I don't think it's a select few. I think it's a lot of people.
If I had had the choice when I was 12 or 13, I fully would have believed, yes, I want to be infertile my whole life just for this. And now having children is like my #1 goal in life. It's my biggest goal. It's my dream now to have children, and it breaks my heart that could have been taken away from me if I had been encouraged just a little bit more by my parents or by, you know, the system or the NHS or anything like that. Again, I send love and hope and peace out to all of you, and I hope that you find peace within yourself if you're watching this video, and yeah, love you.
I mean, like, that was one of the, if not the best, like, testimony I've ever seen, because she hit so many important points of the situation, whether it be like mental health being a real driving factor, talking about young women specifically, talking about the peer pressure. She truly hits everything. And my goal in reacting to this, obviously not trying to debate any of it or do anything like that, but I just think these stories, like she said, they get suppressed. And people who choose to detransition, they face so much social pressure after the fact. They lose so many people. They deserve to be heard. And so I just wanted to amplify this and then be able to add to it in my more aggressive way, because I already have solidified myself in these opinions. And obviously, I'm going to link her video in this description. Her name is Jamie. If you want to go support her, she has been posting some other videos. I think this is by far her most popular, but she has also talked about sobriety and drug addiction. If you're interested in that sort of thing, go support people like her. It really, really is important. So anyway, thank you guys for sticking around, obviously, and watching another one of these reaction videos. I'll see you next time. Before you go, make sure that you like this video if you have not already, subscribe to this channel, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a single comment section or off the clock episode. We are putting out new content every day, sometimes twice a day, and even on weekends now, and I don't want you to miss a thing.
Alright. So, this is what I took in from that video. This is just my personal opinion about my response to it. It's a slippery slope, and like, okay, so she has a point that when you're that young, you're not thinking about certain things that you should be thinking about when making a decision about gender, your preference, blah blah blah, and surgery. Like at the end of the day, hormone replacement therapy, and if you detransition like when you're 40 or 50 or whatever, what if some things aren't irreversible? I feel like only so much is like you said, there's no data for this. Like she made it sound like everything was new. Like no one really knew, that would happen or this would happen. And if I had to agree or disagree, I would say I agree that that kind of decision isn't a decision you should be making when you're under 18. Why 18? Because legally you're considered an adult when you're 18. If you don't like that law, contact the local congressperson, move to a different country, whatever. But that's just the way it is in America, so other countries too, obviously. But getting back to the point, irreversible damage, damn. How do you live with that the rest of your life? If I was gonna be trans, like let's say I'm 13 or something, I would hope, in my opinion, when I was 13, right, let's get a little personal here, I would not have, if I really wanted to be trans, I wouldn't have done it when I was like 13 or whatever. And partly because I know my parents would have freaked out, and they would have did everything in their power to stop that. Now, see, a lot of this is ifs that I can't respond them fully because it hasn't happened to me. But from what I gather from this video, that's a big decision for a teenager to make. And if you're going to be a teenager and make that decision, you should be 18. 18. Yeah, so that was Brett Coover in the trans movement. Someone told me a lot of her videos are right people, right wing, and right people. But yeah, I'm tired. I don't know what else to say about this, so I'm just gonna let you guys decide for yourselves. And speaking of that, take care of yourselves and each other.